I'm the marketing. Thank you, Marga. I'm the marketing director here at Minoan, and I'm thrilled to be your host for today's session. For anyone who isn't familiar with Minoan, I know there's obviously a lot of members as indicated in the chat, but we're a centralized ordering platform for investors, property managers, designers, anybody who operates in the short-term rental space. We help people furnish and restock at a really great discount on top hospitality brands. And we also help people set up what we call the showroom so that they can monetize those items when guests shop their stay. I'm super excited to introduce today's guest, Tatiana Peralt. She's the onboarding specialist at Beyond Pricing. Beyond, if you're not familiar with Beyond, is a revenue management platform for short-term owners and managers. And I can't wait to dive into some of the fun insights that Tatiana has to share with us today. I do want to just touch on a couple housekeeping items. Number one, the chat is open if you simply want to react to takeaways or put your Q&A questions in there, because we're going to be reserving all of those till the end. So we'll have 15 minutes at the end of the presentation, as usual, to go through all of your burning questions. But please stay on mute throughout the presentation because we really want to hear all the great things that Tatiana has to talk about. Everyone is muted by default, but if you come off mute, I will mute you. So please just try to stay that way throughout the presentation. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to turn it over to Tatiana to dive into all things revenue management and do a little brief intro of her business and her role.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. So hi, everybody. Happy to be here. My name's Tatiana. I am one of the onboarding managers here at Beyond. Of course, Beyond, we are a tool of many different products. We do everything from dynamic pricing to direct websites. We also have our own payment processor now as well. So we do a lot, and we have a lot of experience, not only within our team, but also just kind of like our time in the industry as well. A little bit about my experience. I actually come from being a customer of Beyond before I joined the team here. So a lot of what I want to be talking about, I not only know that you experience, but I also experience myself. So I'm super excited to chat through all things revenue management, how to make that property shine, and then also utilizing the latest technology to save yourself some time, because having that tech stack that is well-rounded and helps you not only from your operational standpoint, but also making your guests happy is so important when it comes to all things kind of surrounding revenue management as a whole. So awesome. Let's just dive right in. So why revenue management? Why is this important? Of course, there are so many different factors that play into it. Of course, our big factor and really our bread and butter, what we're known for, is the dynamic pricing. So having a strategy, a pricing strategy, whether it's traditional or dynamic, is also important in making sure you're building some of those guest profiles. Now, I understand that revenue management is so much more than just that, and it can include any one of these factors here. So of course, your marketing and content. Are you investing time and money into a marketing strategy that gets your name out there? Does your listings description contain all of the right keywords and qualities that your guests might be searching for? And do your photos align with that too? Channel distribution is a huge one as well. Are you using the channels that are most effective in your market? So if Airbnb is that most popular channel, let's make sure that the Airbnb listings are all buttoned up for every one of your listings too. Reviews is another big one, because good reviews is what brings good rates, right? So from the service itself to the stay itself, you want to make sure that you're creating an experience that will stick with your guests even after they check out. That way they want to call you back and say, hey, I want to come back again. Let's talk. Not only just that, but direct bookings. So making sure your direct website's experience is equally as enjoyable as the guest's in-house experience is also important. Is it easily searchable? Is it mobile friendly? Is your payment processor trustworthy and recognizable? We know operating costs is a big one. Things break. I've experienced it. I know you've probably experienced it. ACs go out, coffee makers stop working, balls get thrown, and they break a window or knock a lamp over. Wine gets spilled over that brand new rug. What are we going to do? So we have to have a way to fall back when something happens and accidents do happen. Not only just that, but also booking fees. If the price is right, but the fees are too high, you might not be in the most competitive standpoint. So don't short yourself on those fees either, but make sure you're also putting yourself in guest shoes to satisfy both your operations and your guests when it comes to those additional costs. And then lastly is the owner payouts. That's why we're all here. Owners have put their trust in you. You know, they trust you to be able to make sure that everything else is working as it needs to be, as I mentioned. And if your revenue management strategies are all completely optimized, then your owner payout time should hopefully be a breeze. Awesome. So here is why standing out in the crowd is so important and why you do need to have a very well-rounded revenue management strategy. There is, of course, a fraction of Airbnb listings compared to the amount of international tourists there are globally. Not only just that, but the amount of global hotel rooms also is more than double that of Airbnbs. So having an Airbnb that stands out, not only just from the price to the fees, to the marketing, and then finally, to the design of the unit itself is also important in capturing your guests' attention and making that lasting impression that then turns them into returning guests that leave great reviews and continue to help you build your portfolio. So, so from there, I'm actually going to turn it back to Jen, and she's going to be able to take you through how exactly you can utilize some of these tools to make your property shine.
Thanks, Tatiana. You've heard this a couple times already, but I really want to touch on the importance of reviews and how that links back to what you're putting in your short-term rental and the experience that you're crafting based around that. We've all had those. I'm a host myself too. I should mention that if you guys aren't familiar with me, I've talked about this before. Um, it's always kind of a nail biter when a guest checks out and I'm like, did they have a great experience? If I didn't hear from them the whole time, I have no way of knowing. I'm really relying on that review to tell me, am I doing a good job as a host? And I'm always hoping for a 5-star rating. I hate getting a 4-star. I think we can all relate to that. But great reviews aren't just about pride. They are bottom line about profit. So I kind of want to explain why. We all know reviews drive bookings. We live very much in an experience economy, so everyone's making decisions based on social proof. I don't really do anything without checking reviews these days personally, and I know most Airbnb guests feel the same way. So a property with a handful of 5-star reviews is almost always going to beat a similar one with no reviews or even a few 4 stars. Even if it's priced higher. Like sometimes people, they take multiple variables into consideration and they're willing to pay a little bit more money for that social proof. That means that reviews are kind of part of your pricing power. The better your reviews, the more confidently you can push your rates, especially in high demand season. Reviews also compound over time. So, like one review today can turn into a better ranking in search results tomorrow, especially if you're leveraging like Google as part of your business or you're doing some sort of optimization around your actual like direct booking link. Um, Ultimately that allows for more visibility, more clicks, and more bookings, which is what we all strive for. So every guest who has a great stay and leaves a glowing review becomes almost like a little marketing engine for your business, which is awesome. And the third thing, which I touched on initially, is that these good reviews come from good experiences. So that's kind of where Minoan comes into play. When I was setting up my property, I didn't use Minoan. I wasn't familiar with Minoan. I just, kind of threw whatever I could in there. I had a very low nightly rate, not a lot of great reviews, not a lot of super happy bookings. I was very new to the short-term rental industry, having come from more of like a long-term portfolio. And then obviously since becoming an employee and using Minoan to the fullest extent, I've been able to really optimize my property and the reviews reflect that like wholeheartedly. So I've been kind of going beyond the basics, investing in better linens, more comfortable sofa, well-stocked kitchen, and also replacing all of the things that typically like I would have thought were out of my budget to replace. Like I don't like having pots and pans that have scrapes all over them. I'm certain the guests don't really like that either. Now that I have this tool, I can really afford to restock and then just dazzle the guests with a superior experience. So if you're thinking about how to increase your revenue this year, the pricing strategies 100%, and that can be backed by reviews, which are backed by the positive experience. And that's really how, Tatiana and myself kind of came together and we were like, we see a lot of cohesiveness here. And this is, how the presentation came about. So I kind of want to bring this to life with a real life example. So this host is a Beyond customer, furnished multiple properties with Minoan as well. Across their portfolio, as you can see, they've saved almost like $100,000 by leveraging insider pricing on high quality furnishings and supplies, sofas, mattresses, kitchen essentials. The photos are a little small, but you can just see how absolutely gorgeous these properties are, especially this top one with the checkerboard pool. No, we do not offer in-ground pools through Minoan, maybe one day. I just think that's like a 6-figure margin boost because they're being so thoughtful in the decor and the experience that comes from that. But the savings aren't really the whole story. It's the reviews that you can see listed on the left here. They're consistently earning 5 stars. So guests are mentioning how beautiful, comfortable, well-stocked everything is. These things don't happen by accident. This is very intentional. This person is going above and beyond to craft that great experience, and their nightly rate is reflecting that. So they're able to increase bookings and optimize with Beyond's revenue management tools to ultimately have a better, more lucrative business. So this host is pricing smart, and they're investing in the experience to back that. So I kind of want to shift into something related but slightly different. And that's, as strategic as pricing is designing your space with your dream guest in mind, there are certain types of guests that we know will spend more money. Um, Bachelorette parties, great example. When you have several different people coming from, coming together for a special event like this, you can afford to charge a little bit more, but you also need to have the experience for people to want to book that property for that event. And don't get me wrong, there's risks associated with that. And again, like you're gonna have to probably replace some things if it's a very large group as opposed to a smaller group. But that is where a lot of that really nice boost in ADR can come from. Um, I think too often people just go with like what's convenient or what's cheap or maybe what they already own, especially when they're first setting up. But if your goal is to attract these types of higher paying guests and earn better reviews because of that, ultimately commanding a higher nightly rate, you have to think like a guest and you have to think like your ideal guest. So if you were having your bachelor party in Scottsdale, and I can speak to this because I've been to a million bachelor parties in Scottsdale, but like what are the types of amenities that you would want to see, even beyond just the linens and the furniture, but like the special extra touches? Do you have not just an in-ground pool, but all of the pool equipment that a group of, people would want to enjoy that amenity? Do you have enough beach towels? Do you even have sunscreen? I mean, we sell sunscreen at Minoan, that very like chic, very cool sunscreen that they sell at Nordstrom that you can get for a fraction of the price on Minoan. But if you put that in a little welcome basket, like it really impresses people. So, um, you know, selecting furnishings, amenities, decor that align with the stay they're dreaming about is just the key to attracting premium guests. And the best hosts aren't really going with what's available or affordable. They're curating the space based on that dream guest. And then ultimately that just goes back to powering the cycle of better reviews, more bookings, higher nightly rates. And now you're just operating on this really nice automated system for a very lucrative business. So this is something, if you've been on any Minoan presentation, you might have heard us talking about before, but it's kind of like our core, because a lot of times people will see this and they'll be like, yes, okay, I know what I should invest in terms of amenities because I'm in this location, I'm in a warm weather spot. We should really optimize the outdoor space 100%. When it comes to like the core parts of your rental, there are certain things, there's like an easy framework that we always point to. It's a balance between functionality and aesthetics. So, what are the things that your guests are going to notice the most, and what are they going to interact with the most that you should really spend the biggest investment on? That's kind of in the quality quadrant in the upper right. Those are worth splurging on because they directly impact comfort, reviews, and even like repeat bookings. Like I'm staying in an Airbnb right now. I had stayed on the bottom floor for like, it was a nightly stay a couple years ago when I was visiting Chicago. I've now rented the top floor of this place for 4 months because I knew that this was like very well furnished, very well outfitted so that I could stay for 4 months with my family, with my baby, and it would just be like a good stay. So again, that was probably because the host was so thoughtful in how they furnished it. Um, on the flip side, paper towels, dishware, those are kind of more like cost efficiency things. Like things might break. You don't want to overspend and get super fancy dishware. Quality is important, and again, like you've heard me say this, but with Minoan, you can invest in that quality without overspending, which is nice. But I don't think you have to have like, I don't know how to throw out a brand like Viva paper towels. Those were always like the premium paper towels. I don't know if you need to invest in quite so expensive of those consumables that probably won't make the biggest difference when it comes to reviews, ratings, guest experience, and ultimately revenue. So, just like if we'll be sending out the recording of this presentation after, but if you can take a screenshot of this, use this matrix to really be intentional with your spend, invest where it counts, save where you can, always design with your dream guest, and above all, keep ROI in mind.
Thanks, Jen. Awesome. So now let's look at how you can save some time so you can put that time and effort towards making that dream home for the dream guests and the units with, the design in mind to then be able to build that guest platform. And when it comes to saving your time, that means having a tech stack that helps you automate that. And you need technology that works with you, not against you. That tech stack can be things that help you keep your guests happy, but also things that help you find those right guests that then match the unit that you have created beautifully to match the guest portfolio that you are going for. When everything matches and you've been able to pick up then the right guests for the units you're trying to fill, you'll then create those happy returning customers that will build that portfolio as time goes on. You can also utilize some technology to reduce time in your calendar management strategies. You can do this by utilizing things like dynamic time-based adjustments. So that's a tool that we use that helps decrease rates as time gets closer. So we use them in last-minute discount forms. We also use them in increasing those premiums for guests that book way far out into your calendar and will be continuing to come in and so on. Gap filling strategies is another big one as well. Sometimes the ways guests book can make awkward guests or awkward gaps in your calendar, I mean. So being able to fill in those awkward gaps, even if it doesn't quite meet your minimum stay requirement, if you have a 7-night minimum, but we have, say, a 4 or 5-night gap in the calendar, why not allow that 4 or 5-night gap to fill in if your operations has the ability to handle that? Even if you do have these automations in place, like the time-based adjustments, like filling in those gaps in your calendars, like maybe even dynamic pricing, you still want to make sure that you are not setting and forgetting the tools that you use, no matter what that tool is. Even with those quick automations, you still want to make sure you're monitoring your performance so you can make those quick strategic moves that will then make a lasting impact in the end. It all kind of works together. It is technology. Technology isn't always perfect, so you do always want that human side and the human impact and knowing where, okay, so this tech might know, my guest profile, it might know my market, it might know the data and everything that's happening behind it, but you are always going to be the expert in your homeowners and your listings and exactly what your guests are looking for. If it's a returning guest that always brings their family, but maybe they have this one little quirk to them that you always make sure you accommodate each time. You're the ones that's going to know that the best, and that's why you still want to have control over the tools you use. Now, to tie all that together, you can also utilize some reports that some of these tools can provide to you, like market reports, to then share with your homeowners. Having that transparency between what's going on in your market and also allowing your homeowners to visualize some of that information too can be very helpful. It's going to save you some time in those conversations to have some of those automatically generated for you. Not only that, but you'll be able to review exactly what is important with those homeowners, set some realistic expectations, and by having realistic expectations, knowing what's going on in your market, what your guests are looking for, even on the search data that your guests might be looking at too, that can all be very beneficial and then helping you maintain those automations as things go forward. Now, after you save yourself some time, you will be able to experiment with some more difficult things. So things like OTA promotions, we know platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, they do sometimes have those specials where you can put a strike through pricing in. Hey, this is a new listing. First 3 bookings are discounted. Or maybe, we're offering 25% off for this period through that Airbnb promotion. Things like those strike through pricing promotions can catch a guest's eye and make them want to book because they think they're getting a deal. Um, Capitalize on that during slower demand periods. I know sometimes having those lower rates can be scary if guests come in, but it is filling up occupancy that you may not have had before. And some money in your pocket is better than having that night go empty and having no money in your pocket. Not only just that, but those discount friendly guests might come in, have an absolute blast during their quick weekend stay, and now they want to bring their family back for the full family retreat or reunion later on in the summer. Not only just testing some of those promotions to help capture the booking itself, But sometimes you do need to test some things like your description, your photos, and that A/B listing testing to see which works best. Because yes, those promos and the gap fills can help in bringing the guests in to secure the booking, but you need that visibility to make them actually click on the listing itself in the first place. So by testing the effectiveness of different photos. In my example, when I was customer beyond in property management, I was on a lake market. So everything was waterfront, very much a high summer occupancy season, Memorial Day to Labor Day. However, the leaves changing was absolutely beautiful where we were at. And some listings had hot tubs, some listings had fireplaces, maybe even an outdoor fireplace. If you can utilize your photos and say, okay, we have our summer photo album, but we actually have a fall photo album, and let's change our listing photos to the beautiful colors, to the fireplace, to the hot tub. Maybe you can actually capture some guests to book your listing and maybe the not so desirable timeframes, because then you're marketing it in a way to make it desirable for that period that you may not really think of otherwise. And then again, those guests that book during maybe those lesser desirable periods, they might find, wow, this lake is beautiful. We got to try all the restaurants. We got to know that this home will have all the accommodations that we need. And I feel safe bringing my nephew, or maybe my new granddaughter here in the summer, and let's bring the entire family now instead. And then lastly, dynamic minimum stays. Of course, dynamic minimum stays don't really exist yet. Maybe it's something to come in the future. They don't exist yet, but you can still be dynamic with how you operate your minimum stays. I know that this might be a little more tricky because typically those minimum stays and maybe the check-in and check-out day requirements can be operationally based. Maybe it's your cleaners. Maybe they just can't afford to come in and clean that listing more than once a week. But if that is something that you do have the ability to open up to, sometimes those quick weekend getaways again can turn into the returning guest that stays for longer. Plus, more and more guests in most markets we are seeing are looking for those quick weekend getaways. Maybe they can't take a full week off and they want to just do an extended weekend. Maybe take that, Thursday to Monday. Having more flexibility in your check-in days and also how long guests can stay can make a big impact across the board. That does also tie into your pricing, where if you have a good pricing strategy to hold those weekend rates high and maybe discount some of those weekday rates a little further, you can either extend those stays and still pick up reservations that take up the entire week because they can see they get a better deal when they stay for longer. Or those guests that do just stay on the weekends, you will be getting a better deal for it because you're going to be paying more of a premium rate for it, or receiving more of a premium rate for that weekend anyway. Now, I know I've mentioned leading into the market data a few times, so I did want to give you a glimpse of how we visualize the market data. So this is actually our market insights tool within Beyond. Within this tool, you can search for any market. If you're interested in searching for your market to find this information, I do have this little QR code here in the bottom corner. Feel free to scan it, explore it. Let us know if you have questions. But I really love to use this with all of my customers because one, we can see the bookings by channel, what's that makeup? I see here in the Florida Panhandle, which is one of the largest markets, direct bookings is actually taking the crown for the channels that come in. So what does that tell me? They get good reviews. They have returning guests. They have a website that is mobile friendly, recognizable payment processors. Guests want to come back and book with them directly. They don't just want to look on Airbnb and find the one that matches their fit for what they're looking for the weekend. So that can also lean into, there are some other markets that maybe Airbnb or VRBO take the crown on that one. Booking lead time is always important too. You can see when your guests are searching for. With those lead times, you'll know, okay, what photos do I need to have in my listing right now? Are my guests booking for the summer currently, or are we actually getting a little more fall reservations as of now? Your rates, your occupancy, there's so much you can explore within here. Even down to that OTA data will be able to show you what the top 10 amenities are for your market, what the reviews are coming in as. If you're unsure of how to post those cleaning fees, the additional service fees, that will also give you a better glimpse into what maybe the rest of your market has. So you can make sure that you are covering what you need to cover on your end, but also maintaining that competitive edge. Lastly, I did want to carry on that QR code here at the top. So if you would like to explore any market and explore the data within your market, no sign-up required, feel free to utilize that QR code. However, we would love to talk with you if you have some questions about your market or if you want to dive a little deeper into how utilizing some of that data can help. So definitely scan that code, explore your market and let us know if you have any questions. Reach out. We'd love to chat.
And likewise, as you guys, most of you know if you're already members, but if you're not, you can scan the QR code to join Minoan completely free. Check us out. If you haven't logged in a while, definitely check us out because we've had a ton of new features roll out, a ton of new brands, some great discounts. So yeah, feel free to scan, and I'd love to open it up to the Q&A. I haven't seen any questions in the chat, so if you guys want to drop some in now, and then we can start addressing those. I actually would love to kick it off. I have a question. I found it so interesting, Tatiana, when you mentioned on that previous slide about the fact that you can, based on market, you can tell which platforms lead to more bookings. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yep, exactly. So I'll actually flip back to the screen so that we can see what we're looking at here. So essentially what we're looking at is partner data. So we have the ability to see when those reservations are confirmed, what rates are being confirmed at, and also what source they're being brought into. So we can then give our customers the extra visibility into exactly what is happening in your market. It's so interesting how often I find this changes from market to market. There are even some markets that maybe like New Orleans, for example, it operates kind of like a boutique hotel in a way, whereas maybe you don't have individual units. So maybe you have this big building that has each individual unit within, and booking.com might actually be the biggest one there. So it really just depends on really where your markets are and how you cater to your guests for that particular market. It is crazy to see how this changes though. But yeah, the direct bookings, when we see that one's the highest, that's like, okay, this has been a market that's been in the play for a while. It's in the game for a while. We probably have those returning guests that are coming in, but usually direct bookings, Airbnb, VRBO, booking.com, we find at the tops.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting. I actually just launched a property in Tampa, my second short-term rental. And like my default is to just throw it up on Airbnb, like first thing to do. But I'm seeing a lot of people in the Facebook groups that I'm a part of in the Tampa Bay area saying like, hey, bookings have been slow, bookings have been slow. And I feel like this would give us a lot of insights into like, well, maybe we should be exploring other platforms. Maybe we should be, and I'm not saying that I'm not listed on other platforms, but sometimes I'm not focused on optimizing them. About what you mentioned where you're like cycling through photos seasonally is really important. Like maybe less so in Florida, but if you're in an area like Vermont, where in the summer it's kind of a different experience than it is in the fall. Some people go there literally for the fall foliage, and like you should highlight that for sure come September, October, maybe less so during the summer months. And then make sure to take pictures of like those great amenities that you've invested in. 100%. I made that mistake. We put a Peloton bike in one of our properties, and like, I don't know, I guess I just didn't feel like investing in the professional photos to get that in there. And then when people came in, they're like, "You have a Peloton?" Like they were very delighted, and it was kind of that nice surprise and delight moment. But how much more could I have increased my rate if I had actually like marketed that from the jump?
Absolutely. And not even just including it in your photos, but also your first 5 photos, making sure that those are very marketable and are like this stellar impacts. If the living space and the entertainment space is going to be where your guests will be spending most of their time, or maybe you have the hot tub or the pool, make sure that's circled in your first 5 because those are the ones that you can click on for a preview to say, okay, am I interested in this listing before I actually click on it to open it up and learn more?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great take. We did have a question come in from Lori. She's a property manager managing multiple properties, and I'm curious about working with Beyond. Do you have to connect? You have to have all of the properties connected to Beyond to leverage some of these features.
You do not. I will say it depends on certain instances where there are cases where maybe, if we have one system together versus like us, there are some cases where that will fall in. But overall, for the most part, no. We will see all properties, like if you have every listing in, say, Airbnb or maybe your property management system will have visibility into them, but you don't necessarily have to turn every one of them on. I've actually had some customers that I work with where maybe we start with half the portfolio because maybe those are their easier working homeowners and they're more flexible to those rates. And some of the others we have to wait to turn on for a while to kind of give them that proof in the pudding to say, hey, how are things going? Can we prove that this is actually truly working for these listings that we have on board now? And then maybe we can slowly bring some of the other ones on later. But yeah, I think that would be a great way for us to kind of start a conversation, take a look at your portfolio and what your setup is and see if that would be specifically helpful. But overall answer is yes, that is possible.
So it sounds like regardless of kind of whether you're a property manager, an independent host, regardless of portfolio size, you guys kind of have a solution that's really it's suitable for a lot of different people.
Absolutely.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
we do connect directly to Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. We connect to most property management systems as well, just a direct integration with most of them. So yeah, all we have to do is just plug in, your account, whatever houses your listings, and we can go from there.
Awesome. I just saw a question also about missing the first half of the session. So just as a reminder, yes, we will be emailing out the full recording to everyone here. So no worries if you missed it. Any other questions on pricing, these amazing tools that I cannot wait to dive into now that I just launched my new property? Um, Furnishing thoughtfully as it relates to pricing. Tamara is asking, did I miss pricing per listing or if there is a deal for multiple units? So yeah, I guess that's a great question is how do you guys price your platform?
Yeah, great question. So we are actually a percentage based. So of course that would be another one that's, let's have a conversation, take a look at your portfolio and see where things start. But we do start at 1%. So we kind of look at it in a way of, when we make you money, that's how we make money. So we don't want to do anything or make any decisions that could potentially harm your listings or any features that could harm anything as well. So it's not a per listing standpoint. Just when we make you revenue, kind of helps everyone all around, but we are percentage based at 1% starting.
That's great too. I'm the type of person where I sign up for a bunch of subscriptions and I'm just getting like monthly bills,
Yeah.
not even necessarily using them or benefiting from them. So it's nice that, it's really an outcome based situation.
Yeah, it's not like that gym membership where you have the gym membership and you don't show up for 3 months, but you still get charged for it. Um, and what I loved about that as a customer myself too is with my market being as seasonal as it was, I knew that I wasn't going to be getting charged for my pricing system as highly during the periods where I wasn't getting those bookings. They're only going to come in for the bookings that actually exist. Not only just that, but when it's a pricing structure in a percentage way, you can find ways to incorporate that into your fees and potentially pass the cost of beyond onto your guests. It is something that I personally did as a customer. It helped me. I've helped other customers get that set up as well. So there are a lot of different ways and avenues that you can take to make a percentage base work with that. But yeah, again, my favorite part was the fact that when it was slow for me, it was slow for what I was sending beyond to. I wasn't really being harmed in that aspect.
Yeah, I guess if you're passing that through to the guests too, like that impact on their budget is really not that much.
Exactly.
So like it's not, you're probably not making much of a difference. And again, as long as you're creating the right experience to command that higher price anyway, it should.
Mhm. Absolutely. And it does come down to, every guest would then, if you have the percentage based fee, but then, you're going to have those kind of bookings, you're going to have some of those higher bookings. It all averages out at the end. And the goal is to make you more revenue. Again, sometimes having that occupancy and the balance between ADR, it's a balancing act, it's a cause and effect. So yeah, you want to find them at the end of the day, the strategy that works the best for you and makes you the most money while also saving you the most money at the same time.
Yeah. The note that you made on sometimes you do need to decrease your rates. I know a lot of people don't want to do that because they feel like they might be losing, but the concept of something is better than nothing. Like letting something sit vacant and making $0 on it is, in my opinion, not an option. Like now, am I going to discount it to the point where going back to, creating the experience for the guests, the type of guests that I want to attract? I'm
Mhm.
not gonna go so low that we're now like offering too much at that price point and there's like risk there. But, within reason, like, okay, so maybe my take home isn't quite as high on this booking, but my expenses are covered, my mortgage is covered. That's what's most important sometimes. Especially if you've been investing for a while and if you're the property owner too and you're focused on like long-term appreciation in addition to the short-term revenue from that.
Absolutely. And you can even think of those lower, cost bookings as maybe, yeah, that booking allowed me to break free for even for what that period is. Think of it as a marketing booking. I'm seeing more and more property managers are bringing in the influencers to say, hey, come in, you get a free stay, but, post about us, get the word out. And sometimes having that word out or having that discounted guest that came in and stayed, maybe they're going to have the best stay ever because they didn't have to spend too much on it. They got that weekend getaway that was very needed. Now you have that stellar 5-star review that guests going forward will continue to see. They're not going to know that that 5-star review came from maybe a discounted booking from a guest that only stayed for a weekend. They're just going to see this guest had an awesome time. They love the accommodations. Maybe the view was gorgeous and they had great restaurants in the area. And they're gonna be like, yep, that's exactly where I want to go. So you can think of those more discounted guests as something's better than nothing, but we filled up occupancy as this could be a great marketing tool that's kind of like free marketing because it just comes with the territory of having another guest in the home.
Yeah, I actually, it wasn't necessarily planned up front, but I do have a funny, not a funny, but an impactful, like personal story with that. Last fall when the hurricanes hit our area, we just between Helene and Milton, we had a bunch of booking requests after Helene because people in our market, which is Bradenton, it's like 15 minutes from Anna Maria Island, which is a very hot vacation market that was devastated this last fall. But we had a lot of people who were displaced from the hurricanes who needed a spot to stay after Helene. Well, while they were staying at our property after Helene, Milton hit and caused like I think we had around $35,000, $40,000 worth of damage due to
Oh,
power outages and a tree fell on the house. And they having those people stay there to keep an eye on the property and the appreciation that they had, like we ended up refunding them for obviously the time that they didn't weren't able to like use the electricity, which was all things beyond our control. And technically, I didn't have to do that. There's a lot of things that you don't have to do as a host, but at the end of the day, you're like put yourself in a kind of a humanity position. And so we ended up giving them a lot of money back. Our neighbors ended up taking them in and feeding them dinner and letting them have a hot place to shower. And it was just like a really nice, like back to the core concept of like hospitality and crafting this amazing experience, how that relates to pricing and yeah, it's just and obviously I got a 5-star review out of it. I got like a beyond a 5-star review and they are local, so they referred us like 3 guests after that. So I didn't
mm,
make the most amount of money on that booking, but I did get a 5-star review, which led to more bookings through marketing purposes, but then also like direct referrals from those same people. So it's just a kind of a proof of concept of exactly what you're talking about.
exactly. And not only that, like hey, we did this goodwill gesture, it happened. It can be just the experience of talking with somebody. I would have guests that say, hey, I want to speak to Tatiana because she's going to hook us up with the home that she knows is going to work the best for my family, all of my needs. I've even had some scenarios where maybe the home actually does have an issue. Maybe there's a cleaning issue. Maybe, the AC does go out. Things happen. But if you can continue to have that good relationship with your guests, they have a good experience from the guest service standpoint and not just the stay itself, that will also continue to bring them back. And those problems that may happen in the home might not seem as substantial because they know that you've got them.
Oh yeah, 100%. I always say like if you have like a really good mattress and good linens, a lot of guests will like overlook the things that you can't control, like the power goes out. That's a perfect example. But if your place is like really thoughtfully furnished and then priced relative to that, or you have some really great amenities again, and you're pricing based on that, people will overlook stuff because you've already created this like really nice experience for them. Now, if everything is subpar, then you're going to start to get some complaints. That's going to impact your reviews. It's going to impact your revenue. But yeah, I really think that's why, lesson learned for myself is I being new in the space in 2022, I didn't know that that mattered so much. I just thought ROI, here's some cheap furniture and then here's some bookings and just, but I learned that that's not really the host that I want to be.
When you invest more, you get more out of it, right?
100%. Let's see. Do we have any more questions in the chat? We had another question about the recording. Yep, we will be sending that out. We'll also be sending the links where you can explore market data, no sign up with Beyond, super cool tool. And then obviously, if you're not already a Minoan member, you'll be able to sign up for Minoan through that email as well. All right. Well, I think I think we can wrap up. Any final thoughts, Tatiana? Anything we want to add?
Just to kind of wrap it all up, again, revenue management and design and marketing, it's not just one thing. There's so many pieces of the pie to look at. And it's like when you get a pizza, you want the entire pizza to be delicious, not just like two or three slices of it. So look at your whole pie when you're looking at everything all together, from the listing to your, your pricing strategy. What are your fees? Your backup when the AC breaks. Look at everything from a grand aspect, from, the design of the home, the physical features, to what happens on the back end that your guests don't look for. Um, all in all, guests are looking for an experience nowadays. They don't just want a place to lay their head when it comes to an Airbnb. They want an Airbnb that they can go into and not have to leave, because they want to be able to spend their entire vacation there and enjoy it through and through. So create a good experience all around on all aspects from your side of things as well.
Yeah, that's a great take, and great closing thoughts. And so once again, I'd just like to extend my heartfelt thanks to you, Tatiana, for presenting today, giving us all this valuable insight. And then obviously to all the attendees, thanks for joining us. And we hope you found today's webinar inspiring and informative. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.